Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die, where my goal is to give you evidence that although our bodies will disappear, we survive physical death. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. Today on our show, we have the magnificent Susan Lustenberger. Prior to her work as a professional medium, Susan worked in corporate America. Now, she'll tell us about her journey on the show today, but I find it really interesting that she's got a passion for helping people, including helping people in their businesses. In fact, Susan is often hired as Chief Spiritual Officer for startups and companies to guide them to their success. She's been lucky enough to work with an array of clients, including business owners, professional athletes, movie executives, CEOs, and individuals, with the common denominator of making a difference for those seeking answers, guidance, and happiness in their personal lives. Susan is currently writing her book called Surviving Death, based on all of her readings and life experiences as a medium, and it will be out later this year. Susan Lustenberger, welcome to We Don't Die Radio.
I am so thrilled to be here. I'm so excited. I feel like I'm bubbling over, actually.
I feel the same way. And I didn't even ask before we got on this. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Perfectly.
Very
Absolutely
nice.
Perfectly.
Very nice. Very often people mispronounce my name, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say, excuse me, it's Champlain, not Champagne. Although I do
love
feel
it.
the bubbles. So, Susan, where are you talking to us from today?
I live in Marin County up by San Francisco, just between San Francisco and Napa. So I have a beautiful little 1-acre ranch, and it's just my little sanctuary, and it's heaven here. And I do my readings. I used to have offices in the city, and that wasn't really, I didn't like commuting. And so I work with so many people all over the world that I do Skype and I do phones. And then if people want me to come to them, I come to them. But you can do my work. You can do it via anything because it's energy, you know?
I think that's fantastic. I've spoken to people all over the world, and it's amazing how energy comes through. And for anyone who's interested, if you go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com, click on episode 90. That's the interview with Susan right now, and you can see her beautiful face. And she's also got the website, SusanLustenberger.com. So all those things and more are on WeDon'tDieRadio.com. So enough of me talking. Susan, how about a little bit of your backstory? Because I know you didn't just wake up and all of a sudden you're a medium at a young age. Or were you, actually?
No, but, I will tell you, I was 4 years old when I saw my first spirit, which was my grandfather. And I didn't realize that till I was about 8 or 9. But I always had the ability to see spirits. And up until I want to say about 5.5, 6, I did not know what I was seeing. And I did not know that it was really not okay in my family or in society to see those things. So as a result of, I saw my grandfather, and then about a year later, my grandmother's best friend's husband died, and we were getting her ready. I'm from Arizona, and we were taking my grandmother to the airport, and the gentleman that had passed came to me and showed me that he was sitting in their kitchen in Texas, and keep in mind, I was like 5. And I knew what type of jelly she was putting on her toast. And so me thinking that would comfort my grandmother, I told her this whole story. And my mom, who is the most passive, non-confrontational woman, took me outside. My grandmother got very upset and grabbed my face and said, "You will never utter those words again to your grandmother or to anybody. What are you thinking?" And I did not know what I didn't know. And so I made a very conscious decision in that moment to not ever talk about what I was seeing and what I was experiencing. And so as a result, my life as a child became utterly confusing and with a little dash of not very safe, right? I didn't know what I could talk about and what I couldn't talk about. And a little bit of the backstory on that is I was raised in a huge Irish family where my mom was Southern Baptist and my dad was Irish Catholic.
Wow.
And they were cool enough to raise us middle of the road. Mm-hmm. And as they evolved, they let us evolve. And so I was really lucky that way. And then I, got into my teens and my early 20s and I started climbing the corporate ladder and had no use for it whatsoever. Didn't even think about it, was always utterly, utterly fascinated by life after death. Mm-hmm. And reincarnation. Like for me, even as a young, I would have rather have watched a movie or a TV show about that than anything that all my friends were watching. I was really, really, so interested in those things. And now I know it's for good reason because it was my path. So I kind of dove into corporate America and having fun and moving to LA. I'm an identical twin and we moved to LA together and we had a great time. But then as I started getting older, it started coming back. And as I had my kids and it was before cell phones. And I would unplug our house phone when the kids napped and I would just sit and have coffee and kind of catch my breath.
Right. And
I would start seeing spirits and then I could start hearing them. And it became, oh my goodness, it became such sacred time for me to get the kids down and connect with spirit. And I didn't know that I was actually doing an organized practice. And I had a medium. We couldn't sell our house. So I had a medium come in to find out why the house wasn't selling. And she actually, and I want to say I was 34. Mm-hmm. And she said, you will be a medium, but you really are not grounded. You must get grounded in who you are in your path and you will become an active working medium. And it was like music to my ears, but I didn't believe her because my whole belief system was based on the limiting beliefs that I was raised with. So then my husband and I at the time, we were, I'm no longer married, but at the time we would play this game, How Psychic is Susan? And he got the biggest kick out of it. And he was such a critic. And I could prove over and over and over. Like I could tell him, okay, we're going to go to Disneyland and we're going to see these people. And this is what's going to happen. And this is how it's going to go down. And it would always happen. Always, 100% of the time. So it was fun. And it took away that scary ego thing of, what am I doing? But on the flip side of the psychic thing, the mediumship thing really, really started coming strongly. And I started getting a lot of messages and I didn't really know what to do with that. And then my dad passed away. And I swear if that man didn't give me the full blown gift of mediumship or getting, I guess, all my natural born gifts back, because I was with him as he passed and went into energy and went into the spirit world, it was like something physically happened to me and I couldn't control it. It was like a movie. I couldn't control who was coming to me, I was seeing things everywhere. And so I decided, boy, here it is. And you don't know what to do with it. So let's get some education. Mm-hmm. And I started like workshops and I signed up for schools. But here's the thing. I was clairvoyant and claircognizant by birth. And I had done everything in my power to shut down clairsentient. And that still is something that just now I'm okay with it coming back. So when it came back to me, it came back in the most organic, natural way. And it was just ever present. And it was through meditation, because I've been a practicing meditator for decades, actually. Mm-hmm. And it was through that I could actually organize it and organize how I could help in the world. And then I just started to help. I was a private meditation coach is how in San Diego, and I would go in and I would be meditating, teaching people how to meditate. And then all of a sudden these spirits would come in and energy would get, really expanded, and I knew things. And then I really honestly, Sandra, let spirit guide me to do what I needed to do in this world.
Wow. Susan, can you back up just one second? You
Sure.
brought up clairvoyance, which I know that term, and I think many people do, but maybe you could discuss what it is. But claircognizant and clairsentient, what those mean?
Yes. So there's 5 main clairs, and clairvoyance is clairvoyance and actually clairsentience are the most common. Clairsentience is clear feeling. Okay. And it's when you walk in a room and you can feel like something has just happened, but everybody's saying everything's good. Claircognizance has to be one of the most confusing, and by far it was so confusing for me, and that is clear knowing. And it is when you walk into a situation or you're sitting with somebody and you know everything. Like I was that child. It's funny, we laugh now. I was that child that always was, I just knew, and I always just said, if I knew something, I knew. And they'd say, how do you know that? I'd say, it's what they said. And it didn't, for me, come in as clairaudience until I developed clairaudience, which is clear hearing. But claircognizance is like, it's like you're a computer and all of this information is being downloaded. And it's very confusing as a child because you think in some cases that you are lying because you just said something that you don't have any proof of. And then it comes true. So it's a really slippery slope. And I will tell you, one of the most recent experiences that I had, that even you would still think after all these years of doing this, I would get it, but I didn't. I was doing a favor for a friend of mine, and I was private chefing at a party for her. Like I was going to cook for all of our friends. And
you do it all, girl. Oh my.
Well, I wouldn't say that. But anyway, I called her out of the blue and I said, Robin, I can't do dinner on Saturday night. I can't. I'm so sorry, but you have to find somebody else because my mom has bladder cancer and I'm going home. And Sandra, I just about died because my mom didn't. And my mom was perfectly fine when I made that phone call until I got another phone call, which was my sister saying, Mom has bladder cancer and you need to come home.
Wow.
And still, I mean, that wasn't even that long ago. That was like, I think that was 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I still had that little bit of self-judgment where I was like, you are a horrible person. And why do you even want to get out of private chefing? But it just, we still are human. And my mom is fine but that was the fact. And it just came pouring out of my mouth as knowledge. And that is claircognizance.
Wow. And my heart aches to you as a little kid. We often hear stories of little kids that either have like past life memories or they can see people, and all these great things. And I wonder like, oh, it must just be them growing up and the little voice inside our heads grow and we get busy in real life. And meanwhile, I'm sure there's a lot of little kids that when they voice something, it might freak out or scare a relative or someone in their life and they tell them to stay quiet. I mean,
and here's the thing. It was every spirit that ever came to me, every experience I ever had was never scary. And I believed it more than I believed what I was seeing sometimes in my own home.
Wow.
And so to be told I was wrong. Like when I finally told my mom, I think I was 8 or 9, when I finally told my mom that my grandfather had woken us up while we were at my grandmother's house. And I said, Posse woke us up and told us Mama was making bunny rabbit pancakes and we went out and they were. Mm-hmm. And she just said, honey, no, your grandfather had died. She wasn't living in that house when he was alive. And so it was just like at some point as a child, you just stop. You just stop that communication because you get really clearly that it's not acceptable Does that make sense? And
it does. It just makes me sad.
I know. And it's so funny because I had to come out of my closet, what I think 3 years ago with my mom. And I finally told her, and she said to me, we had this great talk, and my whole family has always kind of wondered, and they've thought, oh, Susan's a meditation coach, because there was some stuff there. And so my mom asked, and she was in the hospital, and I sat down in her bed and I said, well, I'm going to tell you how my day goes, and you tell me what I am. Mm-hmm. And so I told her a typical day with a reading, and my mom said, do you actually call yourself a medium? And I said, I do. I said, and Mom, I have a website. And I said, and I help people. And my mom just said, how come you never told me? And I kind of laughed. And I just said, well, actually, I did. And I just said, Mom, I was really little. And I said, and I told her about my grandmother's incident where my mom, and my mom, I was the youngest of 4 kids. And so it was, I think in her defense, like it was just, is she just making this up? Is she trying to, what is that? I don't think anybody in the 60s thought, wow, she's a medium. Right. That we just didn't go there then.
Yeah. And I know our parents did the best they could, and most of them were in their young 20s, and, they're whole different people now. My mom's in her 70s, and, she's a whole different human being than she probably was then, as am I.
Right, for sure. That's exactly, and you have to look at it that way. And so I don't feel like, and here's the thing, and especially now doing one of the things I do, I needed to have all of those sensories shut down and dormant so I could exist in corporate America. So I could exist in, what I was doing and having fun. I could not have done it. When I was in high school, I could only go out one night during the weekend because it was too overwhelming for me. And so it is such a gift that I shut all of that down until I learned everything I needed to know, because we learned that way too. And then I, perfected how I could go back and help that environment in which I don't know how people work in corporate America anymore. And we are changing, and there is huge cultural shifts going towards consciousness and awakening. And it's so awesome, but we've got a long way to go.
Mm-hmm. Susan, when you started getting into life after death things and mediumship and, from corporate America to being a medium, was it like you had to turn the switch back on? You might have said it earlier, but is it something that you really closed it off and then it just kept knocking on your door that I'm supposed to do this?
Yes. And I have to say, as I was getting closer to the defining moment of being who I was, and I don't even mean being a practicing medium, I mean all of a sudden being filled with that. Right. It got more and more difficult for me to go to work every day. And I was, in my career, I was director in sales and marketing for Hilton, for Starwood, for Outrigger. It was a high corporate driven market. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point I couldn't do it. It got so painful, and I wasn't connecting the dots that my time spent alone, having, dealing with spirit and meditating and becoming almost, I want to say, not addicted, but boy, it was a more comfortable place for me to be in than corporate America. That, it did, that's a perfect way to put it, is it did keep knocking on my door until, I want to say really until my dad died. And there was really cool, my dad, his journey was so fast and so intense. And I'm so grateful that he picked me to be with him when he passed, me and my twin sister. And I believe people pick who they pass with and how they pass. And that's part of a really strong knowingness I have from what I do. Mm-hmm. And I am so grateful. And I feel like I needed to be in that room to close up the deal. You know, I feel like that I had to go through that to accept that, yep, this is not death. This is just a transition. This is like, and even my dad, a few days before he died, just looked at all of us and said, well, this is a journey I haven't been on yet. Or no, an adventure. And he was right. Like, and that's what I know to be true.
Wow, I'm just having flashbacks of my own dad right now and when I was with him in his final moments.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. Anyways, our dads are special.
And I know they are.
And I'm also thinking, just whoever's listening right now, there's things that happen in our past and some times that are really tough or real critical moments. And like when you're in the heat of it all and in that moment, like my dad's passing was not anything magical from one life to another. It was just a suffering and fear and all that. But looking back on any times that we have like that, and it may take years from when you're experiencing it, you can sometimes really see, had that not happened that way, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now. And it sounds like for you, Susan, and for me, and for many people that I've talked to, some of those most painful moments are actually give us the biggest gift in life because they allow us to be who we are now for people.
Oh, my Lord, I totally believe that. And I believe that in everything we do takes us to the very next moment, which takes us, all the way to exactly what we're supposed to be here for.
Yeah, that's good. A good thing to think about because sometimes I know I'm certainly human. I think I should be somewhere else by now, or I can't believe when something happens the way it does, and it's just like, oh no. But to just maybe trust, right? Trust.
It's all a big cliff to jump off of, and we're caught. We're always caught.
So did you jump off the cliff and quit your job in corporate America and go into being a medium? How did that happen? No?
Actually, I took a little longer route. I actually quit my job and became a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And oddly enough, this came up totally in my path. I became a designer. And in our we had moved to San Diego and just really worked on raising 3 kids and becoming a medium, and not really in a way that I felt really comfortable about. I mean, I was so closeted as this medium, and I would go to Hay House functions, like I was in search of all the knowledge in the world, right? Because I felt like I couldn't do it until I had all the knowledge in the world, which is absurd, but that's how I felt. And so, no, I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. And then as things progressed, and right after my dad passed, on my personal life, on my human life, instead of my being life, my human life was kind of in disarray with a really failing marriage. And I was at a choice point in my life about happiness. And so one day I woke up and I had 3 little children, and I capsized the sinking ship, and I sat down my husband and told him that we were over. And it wasn't a shock. But then I moved to Northern California from Southern California, and uprooted my children and came and just made the conscious choice to be happy. And I did that without knowing what I was going to do for a living. Like, I didn't have a plan. This was just guided. Mm-hmm. And so when I moved here, I didn't know if it was going to go smooth or not so smooth with my ex-husband and the divorce. And I was told by my mentor at the time that I might want to, since everything was kind of up in the air and negative, I might not want to do a lot of meditation and really focus on this because energy. And I picked a town that is not open to this at all and is very, very based in Christianity. And it's a very small town and it's beautiful and I love it, but they did not love me. So I opened an eatery with all the food that I just always was a really good cook. And so I had a restaurant where I cooked one thing every night and you had to take it to go. And and it took off. I mean, it just took off and I did it for 1 year and I got all the capital I needed to be safe for another year, hanging my shingle as a medium for my kids and I. And that was such a gift. And when it was over and I walked away and I was so happy I did that. And then I just hung my shingle and my phone out of the blue, someone said, I found you on Yelp. And there was no way they found me on Yelp. I wasn't on Yelp. And it just was, they were guided. I sat in a meditation and I meditate twice a day. And part of my meditation is I call in my spirit net and those are my guides. I'm heavily in relationship with my guides and I ask them to send me who needs me. And it's amazing how that works better than any social media, than any anything. They just find who needs you, finds you. And that was about 6 years ago. And so when I finally came out of my closet, I just became slammed,
I do know a little bit different, but I was petrified to tell people I was writing a book about life after death. And I'm always scared when I'm sitting next to somebody on an airplane. And they say, oh, what do you do for a living? Because I'm like, speaking of food, I am a chef and I
know.
Cook for race car teams, soon to be in your area at Laguna Seca Raceway in Monterey. But there's that fear there. But then when I say it, I can't believe how many more people than I think will, they want to know, they're interested in life after death. They've had some strange experience. It's just like this whirlwind of, oh, I believe in that too. Oh my gosh, but it's so easy to think that they wouldn't. So I can see why people would flood to you. And what was it like if, because we talk about life after death, obviously, on this show. But do you remember some of the first readings that you did with people that you really touched them, that their loved ones were nearby? Do you remember that experience? I mean, I know you still live that when you talk to clients, but just
I absolutely do. I actually have one gentleman that called me and booked an appointment using a fake name. And, that never works when you're talking to a psychic or a medium.
Right.
But he did. And his son had passed. And so he came in and he sat in my living room and I said, we were kind of making niceties and I did the blessing and protected us. And then I said, so, you're Max's dad. And he just looked at me and it was so profound and I said, he's right next to you. And the conversation, the triangle between the three of us. And I said, and I was telling him, I said, the cupboards in the kitchen. I said, that's not your wife. It's not your other kids. That's Max. He does it all the time. He started to laugh and he goes, we were just arguing about the cupboards today because I come in and the cupboards are all open. And I said, yes, I know. I said, because I came out this morning and my cupboards were all open. I said, Max was showing me what to tell you. And then I had told him, I said, he's always, one of the things I said before the reading was over, I said, Max wants me to tell you this. I said, he is always standing right by you. Always. And, this gentleman was taking copious notes and he was really taking it all in. And he had shared, I had told him that the two boys that were with his son when he passed were really not doing well and that really needed a connection. And he started to cry. And I said, Max would like you to reach out to them, and he's made it easy for you. And he started to cry, and he actually told me that the day before he was cleaning out his office, and a piece of paper fell out of an old file with those two boys' names and phone numbers on it. And those are the things that I get to experience every single day. Because what my goal is I love that I am a flashlight for people, or that I'm a bridge, or that I'm a microphone. I would love people to know they can do it too, and that they can have access to the people they love. I believe that there's a reason they can't, and that's because there would be an imbalance. If you could always be hanging out with somebody you missed, you might choose to do that instead of get up and go to work. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know just what you're saying. There's people that are addicted to finding mediums and all that.
Yes. But to circle back around to this reading is I got an email the next day from this gentleman, and as he left my house and he started his car, and he hadn't listened to the radio on the way to my house, but as he started his car, that song, it's from, I guess, a movie, and it's I Will Stand By You, came on and was playing. And to be able to give people the reasons things happen in their life that they can't explain are amazing. And the other experience that I had was my very first reading here, not in San Diego, but after I came out of the closet, and a woman came to me, and I do automatic writing, which is what I go into a deep meditation and I start to writing. And her father, she was Chinese, very traditional Chinese, but she had moved here, and she had moved here against the will of her father. And he then passed, and she couldn't go be there. He had come to me, and I had done automatic writing, and I had written a letter to this woman from her father. And it was the most beautiful letter of love and forgiveness. And when we pass and we are, like when we transition and we're energy and we're spirit, we are not culturally bound. We are not, religion bound. We just aren't. And this letter healed her so much that, and she was such a sad person. And her great-grandmother, I said, I'm seeing your great-grandmother is shooing kids. There's little kids running around you, and she's shooing them away. And I said, you don't want children. And I said, and she said, I don't at all. And I said, you won't, that's not on your path here. I said, but your grandmother's acting as a spirit guide, which is rare that our family does. I said, but she is protecting that. She's honoring that in you. And she's helping with that on your path, because she was in a relationship where the man wanted children. So it's those little things. That's why I'm writing a book, because there's so many stories that go from the little sweet things to unbelievable happenings. And I feel like when I was looking for answers, and when I was looking to connect with a truth that I was born with, but I had shut down, it was those stories of other people in books that validated me as I sat in my little, suburbia closet, and I knew what I had experienced was real. And that's what I want people to know, because like you, Sandra, people all the time, when I do tell them who I am and what I do, they always have a story. And I don't care. It doesn't matter, because it's not tied to what we are tied to here.
Right. And we as human beings, I think it's just nature of the beast. I mean, we have fear. We have this self-preservation. We care about what people think. I mean, most of us do anyways.
Right.
A lot of times, I mean, there's a real fear if people knew this about me, they wouldn't like me. And it's not like you're a good or bad person, but like that's just part of being human. It's like we've got this need to look good and avoid looking bad, and we don't want to embarrass our kids or anything. So we kind of keep quiet about this stuff. And one of the big passions I have with this radio show, and I think one of the reasons the amount of listeners are growing so rapidly is because when we can either read in your book these stories that it's like, this is real, or we can hear a great conversation with you, Susan, or maybe someone else, or just going to a retreat or going to a seminar or things like that. It makes us remember, like, this is real. Because I think our humanness is probably one of the reasons we're on Earth is, or part of being human is to forget who we really are. Because I think, like you had mentioned, if we are locked in with a medium 24/7 or trying to make contact with those in the hereafter, it's like we avoid living life, which I think is the whole reason we're here on Earth.
Right. Oh, for sure. And when I had two fears coming out of my mediumship closet, and one was that I would be rejected by people that I loved, or my children would be rejected.
Oh, sure.
And that happened. I cannot even tell you. My children, no birthday parties, no play dates, no, nobody would talk to me at the grocery store when they had just been buying my meals.
Oh.
It was so great. It was so great. But here's the thing. I sat my kids down and I said, here's what's happened for us. And my kids are so good with what it is I do and what the bigger picture is that they went out and they found real friends.
Yes.
And they found, and I did, like, I got supported by people that I adore and they adore me. And it's so funny. I will see people in the grocery store and they'll go, "Are you still doing that thing?"
That thing.
So I get a little louder and I'm like, "Yes, I'm still a medium." And for me, it was such a growth thing. And my other fear, Sandra, I have to tell you, was that I would be wrong.
Yes.
And that I would give somebody really wrong information. And there's two problems with that. One, I was so wrong. And I write about it in my book, and I write about it in detail because it was probably what I deemed as one of the most important readings I've ever done. And I was wrong, or I still know I got the information and I know it wasn't me. So I'm still a tad confused.
Right.
But the other thing is it's not me delivering the message. It is my mouth and my voice and my eyes looking at you, but it is spirits communicating with me, and I am their microphone. It's not an ego thing. It's that I am here to serve, and I serve spirits here because we are all spirits. We're all spiritual beings. And I serve the spirit world, and I am so committed to that, and I feel that I needed to learn those two humbling experiences so I could get over myself.
Well, I'm glad you shared it because I need a little getting over myself. Many of my listeners know this and some do not, but I'm a student in Martin Twycross, who is our mutual connection, his course in mediumship. And then in May 2016, I will be going to the Arthur Finley School. There's a course on mediumship there because I have had some really right-on medium readings that I've done, and then also some super duper duper wrong. And I mean, I've got that question like, oh my gosh, I'm not meant to be doing this, and I just want to know one way or another, because I'm frightened to tell people, because if they should say, well, who do you see around me? Susan, I'm frightened to be wrong, so I'd rather not open my mouth or not tell anybody. And I just love what you said, that it's not you delivering the message. You're just here to serve. And I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah. And look at it that way, Sandra, because here's the thing. if you, like, there's times, because I do a meditation before I do a reading, because I want to be really, really, like, maybe that's the corporate in me, but I really want to, I want to really do a good job. And so there will be times I have nothing. And so I say my prayer and I ask Spirit to come in, and I'm like, look, when they're sitting in front of me, it's important. Like, let me help. And it just comes in, and that's the thing. But you have to always remember it is not you. Now, the one thing we do is we try to make sense of it. My biggest thing that I will always say when I find myself trying to do that, I will look right at my client and I will say, this makes literally no sense to me. And 100% of the time, it is something so significant to your client that it should never make sense to you, because it is a message for them, not for you.
That's perfect validation too.
Yes.
Perfect validation. Wow. Susan, you're the best. How did you get into or have a passion for helping business owners and people in business? Because I love how you called yourself a chief spiritual officer. Yeah. That's awesome.
That's because my clients call me that. I'm the luckiest girl in the world. And here's how. Is people would come to me for a reading, and just personally, and I would do a reading. And, as a clairvoyant and as a medium, I can see what's in store, and I believe it wholeheartedly. And people would be like, okay, how do I get there? And so I would, like, whether I mentored them or they worked with me, I do a preceptorship that's a year long. I do like a 6-month small preceptorship, and I would help them. And what we found is as they were actually becoming more conscious and more expanded, they would look at their companies and they would see the dysfunction that they had created or that they were just working in. And it became unacceptable as they vibrated higher and had a different energy. And so they actually started bringing me in as a consultant. And at first, it kind of was 2 steps back, where it was like I was going in as a marketing consultant. And then that shifted. I have to tell you, that shifted so fast. And what happened is somebody would show me a business plan, and I would look at it and I would pull energy on this business plan, and I would immediately start shifting things around. And the success that the companies had was you couldn't make sense of it. It was and it's all spiritually based, and it's all, the energy of it. Instead of saying, well, our competitor is doing this, it's like, well, but see, just like every human's a spirit, every work endeavor is a spiritual endeavor. And they're all different.
Wow.
And it just took off. So, one thing led to another. And I work with the majority of my corporate clients, believe it or not, are on the East Coast. And here I am in California, where everybody thinks we're airy-fairy and ooga booga and, beach hippies, that most of my clients are in the East Coast, or like Maryland. I do a lot in Maryland. I do a lot in New York. And I do things like I will work hand in hand with a CEO or an owner of a company, and I will help read energy of, when they're transitioning executive committee members. And I go in and then I work with each person. And so that's really why they call me a chief spiritual officer, because I don't come in with mala beads, and I don't come in and try to make you something you're not, because spirituality is not what we wear. It is not yoga. It is not any of that. It is every decision we make from the moment our feet hit the floor in the morning. And it's what brings us closer to our genuine happiness and spirit and the universe, or what brings us farther. And so I work with people to really shift them into just overriding that and going always towards happiness.
Wow, that's a really good way to say spirituality, because I'm a firm believer that life is an education for our soul, and that whatever it is, small things, big things, it's all good. So to be able to apply that in business, it's pretty awesome.
And here's the thing. I mean, it's so, here's the dysfunction a little bit of the spirituality, and especially because, if you have spirit guides, every single one of us has spirit guides. They're there with you at work. And we, even for me, when I first started being brought into corporate America, I was like, okay, well, here's the thing. I wear a lot of turquoise jewelry, and I wear, I don't dress in a business suit, and I wouldn't be good in a business suit. And so for me, it's like, look, that it is not that. That's why I can say it's not what you wear. Here's the thing. I am a spiritually guided person, whether I am sitting in my little sanctuary where I am sitting right now talking to you, looking at deer, or whether I am in a huge, huge corporation. And there's that disconnect where we feel like we can be spiritual and meditate and really connect in with this universe. But boy, on Monday morning at 7:30, when we hit that commute, we turn off.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And my job is to make sure that if your eyes are closed and you wake up in the morning, you are so happy and so calm that you don't know if it's Saturday morning or Monday morning. And that's my job.
Wow.
And I only do that through spirit. Like everybody that hires me knows I'm a medium. And when I get pulled in to do a retreat, or when I get to do a workshop, I have people that will say, can you just not let people know until they get to know you? And, that would be great if I could say that, but really it's going to go down how it's going to go down. And I'm so normal. Like I always tell people, I drive a minivan. I make snacks for soccer. Like I grocery shop. I do laundry. And I'm not like, I'm not a TV show. I am not a performer. People will sit down and go, are you like the Long Island medium? And I always tell them I'm not, because she is a very talented medium, but she's not like the Long Island medium when she's at home.
Exactly.
Like it's a TV show.
Right.
And so, no, you're not being filmed right now. There's not, and that's the thing is it's like I love doing platform work. That is one of the reasons how you and I connected is Martin Twycross is amazing. And what he teaches and how he teaches it is phenomenal. I want to get better and better and better. So there's always more to learn, but we have to. Right now, I do readings all the time and I get brought in. We need to change how corporate America is so we can change this world.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And just remembering, you never know who's in your life, and you look at them and they might be wearing the suit or they might be ultra professional, but you have no idea who their soul is lurking within them.
Right.
You have no idea. And if we can get into practice of just looking at human beings as the soul beneath that, everybody's on their own growth spurt and everything. Wow. Susan, our time's going by fast. So
I just looked at the clock.
I'm like, what happens? So I don't want to not have you share anything that you're passionate about, or I'm trying to think, what question haven't I asked you that I should, or is there something burning inside that you can share with our listeners so that we can wake up tomorrow morning or even the rest of today and be happy? I mean, where should we go from here in our last 10 minutes or so?
There's a few things.
Okay.
But one of the most important thing is this: slow down. Slow down to live at a pace where your intuition can talk to you and where you can hear it. We are so busy rushing, and we wear stress like it's a, code of honor. And we need to slow down to hear the voices of spirits and of spirit guides. And they're not scary. And how, that is so much what I wish for the world. And I chose to do that. Our life was fast, fast, fast. And I did an extreme move. But boy, was it the right move. And I'm not saying that move is for everybody. You can be in the most fast-paced corporate job, but take a moment to just center with who you are. And in any moment, ask yourself, is what I am doing right now moving me closer to a happy life?
Wow.
And if that answer is no, then, or if it's a have to, figure out what it is, how you can shift it and make it feel like a closer step. Doing dishes, we need to ground. You need, like I always tell people, this is how like I guess mainstream I am. If somebody comes to me and they need to be grounded, I most definitely don't say go hold crystals and meditate. I say you get out in the garden or you do your dishes, make a dinner. Like that grounds us into this earth. But we are spiritual beings walking in this earth. That's who animates these bodies, is our spirit. Our spirit is not outside of us. This is our car. This is what we're driving on this trip.
Right.
But we get to pick another car the next go around.
Wow.
Yeah, it's, and it's so, I wish people could see what I see or feel or, know, because it's not a sad world. It's not as scary as people think.
That's good news because it sure feels like it.
I know. And it's, but it's not. And people really need to ground in their little lives, right? Their bubble. Like that's what I always tell people when they come in and they want to know what in the world is about to happen. Mm-hmm. It's like, don't worry about what's about to happen. How's your bubble? Did it change how's your bubble? Like, let's keep that intact and stop letting other bubbles come into yours because that's not reality.
What do you mean by bubble and grounding? Because I think I know, but now you just brought up bubble. I'm like, what is she talking about?
Okay, but what I mean by bubble is your own little world.
Okay.
Like my world is filled with work and kids and, my world only changes when I decide it's going to change.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, what I mean by grounding is that when we are so living for the future, or when we are living in past memories of who's done what stories,
right?
We are not grounded into this moment.
Okay.
And we are not grounded into who we are. I mean, one of the things that I do is I get people to know to the very core of their beings who they are and what they love and where they glean happiness from, because then that makes them happier. And so you need to, put a list. If you do dishes all the time, put a list, above the sink of what makes you happy. Who are you? Like ground into that and don't go, like I have people that come to me that don't even feel like they're in their body. And that's because they are living on super social media out there and they're paying attention to everybody else, but they don't know what they want. I have more people come to me to do a self-realization for leaders. And they think their happiness is in their neighbor's driveway, or they think their happiness is telling everybody where their child is going to college. And that is not it at all. Happiness is if everything disappeared, how you feel in your soul and in your heart. And you can be a happy, mad person. You can be a happy, sad person. You can be a happy, annoyed person, frustrated person. but you must hold happiness in your heart. And that's why we're here, is to be love and happy.
Wow. That's awesome.
It makes life really, really fun.
It's so funny. I get really quiet and I don't know what to ask next. And for anybody listening, what's happening is I'm mapping everything you say onto my life and going, oh my God, I'm moving too fast. I'm thinking of the future. I'm thinking of the past. So I go, oh my God, it's me.
Yes. Yeah. You know, we just need to, and that's the slowing down. When you slow it down enough to pay attention, you know, you start noticing beautiful little things in your life that you've created, you know, not media, not TV shows, but you created it.
Right. What a gift you are, Susan.
Oh, thank you. You are too. I love this show. I'm so thankful to be able to have this time to talk with you.
Thanks. And not knocking social media, because that's how we met.
Well, no. And here's the deal. Social media, I have some of the best friends that I've ever had in my life because of Facebook. No, I'm such an advocate, but balance.
Oh, I agree. I most definitely agree. Yeah, we can get caught up in what other people are doing, and
oh my goodness,
oh gosh, there's so many things we can get caught up on. Oh well, thank you, Susan.
Thank you. You're so welcome.
Oh my gosh, and you brought up earlier Martin Twycross. We talked about him a few times. I can't remember what episode number he is, but I don't even remember. But
I think he's maybe like 4 ago.
4 ago, so he might be 80 something. But Martin Twycross was a guy, a skeptic, an atheist who's now a top medium teaching mediumship, and what an incredible story!
Oh, and he's just wonderful.
Oh my God, he's great. He's fantastic. I'll have to let him know that we've been talking about.
Yeah, his ears. Well, I'm sure he knows. His ears are burning.
Yeah, we'll certainly let them know. But also to you, our listener, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for taking this past hour and listening. So I really hope it's been of value. I'm all about all of us having a great life, remembering we're souls having a human experience, reminding us all that life after death is real. Your loved ones are still around. You get to see them again. Your life is for a purpose. You are surrounded by an invisible team of angels and spirit guides of those who are with you and want you to have the best life ever. It does take, like Susan said, getting grounded and slowing down and getting into the present moment to be able to listen to your own intuition, listen to your guidance. It takes trust, because I've lived life almost 50 years now. My birthday's coming up next week.
Oh, good.
But life can be really hard, and it can be really painful, and there can be a lot of suffering. And I wish I had all the answers, but I do know one thing. When we make it through to the other side of our own grief and our own suffering, very often we can find our life's purpose, or we can just have some wisdom that we're able to help someone else on their path. And I think, Susan, you may agree, the absolute best gift you can ever have as a human being is making a difference in someone else's life.
Oh, 100%, for sure.
Yeah. In fact, I was down a couple of days ago, and I was really down, as a matter of fact, and I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was. And I happened to read something on Facebook, and it just talked about either witnessing something inspiring or making a difference for another person. And I ended up watching a couple of short videos on YouTube of people making a difference in another person's life. And it was like I did it myself. It just really recharged me into
it's so real. It's so real. This reaching out and doing things beyond you is so important for us as humanity.
Yeah, it does. It is. And it's the best. So in closing, I had seen this on Susan's website, which is SusanLustenberger.com. Life is too short to live an unhappy one. That's brilliant.
Well, that's so true, right?
Yes. And to slow down, and to really, if you're up for a little homework today, I'll take this on. Ask yourself the question, what makes me happy?
Oh, Sandra, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It's a simple one, but profound. And it's not going to be what you can do in the future or what you had maybe in the past that's long gone. But like right now, what makes you happy? It can be the smallest things ever. So in closing, my name is Sandra Champlain. And like I said, I do believe that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is important. I invite you to go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com and check out some of the other episodes. And if you're daring, share them with your friends and social media. I love that because it helps. You have no idea the people in your life. I mean, maybe they're ready for this kind of conversation. Maybe they're not. But without like extending it, you never know whose life you can change. So all to say, thank you for listening. Hope to have you visit again at We Don't Die Radio, and we'll see you soon.